Ahora quiero dar paso a el gerente de Construye 2025, Marcos Brito, quien nos tiene un invitado muy especial que de hecho está bastante lejos del otro lado del mundo. Si no me equivoco, a 11 horas de distancia, pero que va a estar hoy con nosotros. Bienvenido, Marcos.
Muchas gracias, Ignacio.
El escenario es todo tuyo.
Oye, que estamos felices con tenerlos aquí, a los que nos acompañan presencialmente y por supuesto a todos los que nos están siguiendo a través de las transmisiones. Y tal como lo dijo Ignacio, tenemos un tremendo invitado hoy día, el señor Brendan Pope, que es el líder de Diseño e Innovación de la FLEETWOOD Company en Australia. Es la empresa de construcción modular más grande de ese país. Para contarles un poquito del calibre que nos acompaña, Brendan, bueno, es un arquitecto con más de 20 años de trayectoria, de los que por lo menos 15 años los ha dedicado a la construcción modular, es un experto en el tema y ha destacado también por tener importantes premios en proyectos de construcción modular, especialmente en el ámbito de la educación. Y como a él le apasiona el intercambio de conocimiento y la gestión del cambio dentro de la construcción, también ha creado un vínculo muy especial con la Prefab House, que es la institución de construcción industrializada en Australia, símil de nuestro Consejo de Construcción Industrializada acá en Chile. Y él es el creador de la FLEETWOOD Challenge Cup, una competencia estudiantil de arquitectura, de diseño de construcción industrializada, muy similar al que por supuesto nosotros estamos organizando, que ya la presidenta del Colegio de Arquitectos les ha anunciado. Estamos muy contentos con tenerte, Brendan. Y bueno, te saludo desde acá, desde Chile, a la distancia, y te dejo adelante con tu presentación, por favor.
Gracias, Marcos. Hola from Melbourne in Australia. Can I start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which I present and pay my respects to our elders past, present and emerging. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you today around our offsite experience here in Australia from the company I work at, FLEETWOOD, and my personal experience in our organisation. To start off our presentation, I wanted to give you perhaps a little bit more insight into who I am and why I'm here talking to you today. I am an architect, as Marcos has already noted, with 15 years experience here in Australia, working in traditional practice in architecture for traditional construction, and in the last 10 years I've also been working at FLEETWOOD Australia, which is a company that provides offsite construction expertise across Australia nationally. My experience has been in a number of different sectors, mainly in housing and residential construction. I do also have experience in the education sector for architectural projects. And our organisation itself has a similar alignment to those experiences. In terms of FLEETWOOD Australia, from where I'm working, we are a publicly listed company in Australia with a 50-year history. So there's a significant depth of experience in Australia. We operate across all the mainland states in Australia. So we supply across the entire land mass of Australia, and we specialise in volumetric modular construction. Thinking of that as boxes on the back of the truck, dare I say. So when I was asked to provide a presentation here for your Congress, my initial thoughts were I actually don't know a great deal about Chile, although my partner is actually from Brazil, so I do have a connection to South America. I did a little bit of research and was actually quite surprised to find some level of alignment. So I guess perhaps I just walk through some of the thoughts I had around my comparison initially on our two countries. Starting with demographics, I always think that people are the driver of requirements in our economies. So it's really important to understand what that looks like. Australia is approaching 26 million people as a total population. And I noted Chile is approaching 20 million people. And we have, when looking at the population pyramids, we have a very similar makeup of a fairly column-like structure of our age groups. And also quite similarly, we are having very low fertility rates, which is not unusual for countries in the developed worlds, which I think is an important point. And I want to come sort of back to that later on in the presentation. In terms of geography, I didn't get out and do my homework before the presentation this morning. However, I think there's quite a few similarities here. We have quite a spread along longitudinal spread, which I guess indicates a climate variation that both our countries need to service in terms of the products we supply in offsite manufacturing to our clients across the countries. Whilst we both have, there is a significant disparity between the land masses. We both have a significant coastline that makes up our countries, which I think has also become significant. And I'll show you in a moment another significant topographical feature. In terms of how we live, if you just take the headline numbers around the population, Australia's population density is very low at 3 people per kilometre. And in Chile, we have, according to the statistics I found, 26 people per square kilometre. Both countries are highly urbanised populations, and we have a similar arrangement of town structures between large cities, Santiago and your secondary and tertiary cities. We have a similar arrangement here in Australia with our capital cities, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne on the east coast, and then some of our secondary and tertiary areas as well. So I guess I took that comparison a little bit further, and you can see the morphing on my map here in the presentation. When you actually overlay Chile across the east coast of Australia, you actually find we have even more similarities in common than maybe first are apparent, in that we have a situation across the east coast of Australia where we have 20 million people sitting in the same, I guess, geographical area as Chile overlaid across the top of Australia here. We have a similar scenario where our actual geographic population is distributed in a linear arrangement around the coast. And we also have, despite our mountains not being anywhere near as grandiose as the Andes, we do actually have mountain ranges just to the west of our coastline as well, which sort of is why our population sits on the east coast in the way it does. So again, most of our population centres are within that sort of 200-kilometre range of the coast. So I thought that was quite an interesting comparison between both our countries. And I think then if you actually take that comparison, it allows you then to think about some of the other things around our demographics and our requirements and shortages in infrastructure, particularly in housing. And then we start to think about what are the key drivers of offsite manufacturing in both our in both our countries. And I think we can look to, limits to our skilled workforce, and particularly as we look to the future around population growth and demographics, our need to industrialise and create a manufacturing capability to supply the infrastructure into our countries as we require them, as our younger generations are becoming a smaller cohort than those that are retiring out of the baby boomer years. We need to have a significant logistics infrastructure in terms of road, rail and sea to facilitate the delivery mechanisms for offsite manufacturing to site as well. So there's a number of prerequisites sitting there that drive, in my opinion, the need or the necessity to move to offsite manufacturing further and in a greater accelerated rate for the future. And I guess we're also hoping that this is the promise of being able to do more with less. Moving to the FLEETWOOD experience here in Australia for offsite manufacturing. In the period I've been with our organisation for just over 11 years, in a period of 2015 to 2022, our organisation has undergone significant growth, and we have doubled our revenue over that particular period. Since joining the company, I have also been a significant advocate for offsite manufacturing in terms of trying to break into traditional in situ or traditionally delivered construction markets in the Australian marketplace. Our effort was through the expansion of permanent modular facilities here in Australia, particularly in the education space for primary and secondary education facilities. And I guess also the Australian government, in terms of its policies and programs, particularly here in the East Coast states and the state I'm from in Victoria, have had very significant and supportive policies for driving the uptake of prefabrication and offsite delivery construction projects. In recent years, we had a asbestos removal program in some of our school facility buildings that were required replacement as they aged, and the government was particularly supportive of using permanent modular facilities and leveraging the opportunities of time, cost, and I guess quality, but mainly in terms of speed to get new facilities into schools with the minimum amount of disruption and the maximum delivered safety, which are significant attributes of offsite manufacturing, which I'm sure the audience are well aware of. Beyond 2022, and just looking into the future for our organisation here at Fleetwood and the experience in Australia, we have a significant social and affordable housing demand. We have a significant shortfall of the infrastructure for that particular sector in the Australian marketplace, and that will be something that we really require the offsite manufacturing sector to be able to pick up and help deliver in conjunction with traditional construction to meet our requirements and needs. In Fleetwood, we still have growth in our other core markets as well, in terms of education and resources. I know that we have another alignment here between Chile and Australia in terms of some natural resources and mining, some future minerals around nickel and things like that in Australia are going to be significant opportunities here that will be explored, and that will also help to drive our product requirement in our resource sector as well. The other thing that I'm personally looking at here in Fleetwood is our development of a product platform, particularly around physical assets, that will really help us to drive more efficient production, introduce levels of automation, not only in terms of the physical fabrication of our particular product, but also in the software space in terms of our design, using computational design and generative design to turn up the dial for the speed of the work of progress for the design space in our particular organisation. And again, help us to get a speed to market, which is, I think, a critical factor in offsite construction and one of the key advantages of moving in that particular direction. So over that 11-year journey in Fleetwood, what have I observed? I guess particularly early on in my experience at Fleetwood, I noted that design professionals who were providing design work for us to work from appeared to have limited understanding and appreciation of some of the nuances situated or associated, I should say, with the delivery of offsite or prefabrication as a construction technology. There are always time, cost, and quality pressures for project delivery, and that has exacerbated the ability of our design professionals here in Australia to explore alternative means of procuring their projects. And that has, again, limited their ability to appreciate and understand some of the intricacies and nuances associated with designing for offsite construction and prefabrication to deliver an end product. I guess I want to give an example to the audience there in terms of what I'm potentially suggesting. We have many times received projects of a traditional design and been asked to convert that into a volumetric offsite construction project for that to be delivered at a more cost-effective and quicker time frame. And our department, in my days heading our design facility, we needed to be able to actually look at the planning of the space planning of those particular projects. And quite often we would find that there was potentially traditional breaks for making these projects into volumetric projects, but those actual modular breaks ran through bathrooms. And so we would need to actually do the space planning again in those plans in order for that to actually work effectively as an offsite program. And these are some of the, I think, the nuances that the traditional design professionals haven't had sufficient exposure to, particularly earlier on in the last 5 years. We've probably seen a significant improvement in that space. And I guess that all talks to the fact that offsite is usually referred to as, in the Australian experience, often as an alternative procurement process, and it's done very late in the project life cycle, which again leads to some of those redesign issues and the erosion of the efficiencies of offsite manufacturing without those things being considered first up. So how do you change the status quo? I think, having lived through that experience in 11 years, my takeaway from that was that we really needed to understand how to reach back into the university sector and really influence the education of design professionals in their formative years of tertiary education. We also needed to be able to engage with our practicing design professionals in the marketplace that are already in that particular sector. And we also needed to be able to educate our consumers around the advantages and understanding of prefabrication and offsite as a means of delivering projects for their particular requirements and infrastructure more generally, be that government or private sector clients. And I think taking that sort of understanding of those 11 years has really led us in the last couple of years to the development of the FLEETWOOD Challenge Cup. This is something that I was involved in launching for our organisation. It started in 2019 with a conversation with our industry organisation, Prefab Oz, here in Australia, around the challenges that were being presented to our market sector in the marketplace and what we could do together to partner to actually look at changing some of those things in a proactive way. My role in our organisation in 2019 was as head of our marketing department. So it fell to me to take the idea of a Challenge Cup competition and actually turn that into a reality. The Challenge Cup is a team competition for different universities to participate in, with teams of 4 to 6 students who each year pick up a particular theme and then run with that using prefabrication and offsite manufacturing as the premise of their design solution for the competition. In 2019, to launch the competition, it really was a opportunity to develop some significant relationships with our academics, our university sector, but also our existing architectural, engineering and construction design professionals who were in practice, and bring those particular streams together, as well as thinking about the opportunities for how we could actually promote this in the media to help educate end consumers around the opportunities that can be leveraged using offsite construction and prefabrication. We committed using those particular relationships with a number of key university staff. We were able to generate a group of 10 universities who came together and helped collaborate as a steering committee over a period of 6 months to help, I guess, formulate how we could design the competition for the universities to be able to adopt it into their curricula and be able to deliver that as a topic of study for their particular students in those studies or study streams. One of the, I guess, the things that I was really keen to explore in the competition as well was how do we actually get transdisciplinary teams to work together in a student environment. Coming, as I did, like many of you, no doubt, from a university background, there are limited experiences for delivering real projects with colleagues who come from similar professions or disciplines within the educational space, but you don't actually get an opportunity to work together. So what we really wanted to do here was be able to bring the structural engineers, the services engineers, civil engineers, the architectural students together to really allow them to work with one another and then propel their own education around working together as transdisciplinary teams to deliver projects, which I think is a key benefit and takeaway for the students in the terms of their participation in the competition. Also helps them to understand the challenges that come from each discipline in terms of the nuances of bringing a project to life. And it's a real iterative process for them. In terms of their exposure to the industry, we do have judges coming from the architecture, engineering and construction professions. We have deliberately selected people from those different streams of profession to actually act as judges within the competition each year, so that our students get the opportunity to get feedback not only from an academic advice with their tutors and professors, but also from the industry in terms of the professionals in the marketplace. I always like to think when we do things, we ensure we get benefit in multiple fashion. So if we do one thing, we'd like to get more than one benefit. The exposure of our professional design judges to the students also provides an opportunity for our students to be exposed to our judging professionals, which is an opportunity for them to potentially develop a career and relationship into actual practice. So we really have been very keen to ensure that we drive that connection between industry and academia, both in the competition itself with our organisation, but also in terms of the judging process. Each year, we like to come up with a topical theme that will resonate with the built environment community, our academic community, and also the population more generally as we reach to educate the marketplace. This year in 2022, we've chosen to pursue net zero as a challenge, which is a very real challenge to our economy, but also to deliver affordable and social housing and combine those two challenges together for our students to contemplate and deliver an outcome that helps them to deliver not only their curriculum outcomes, but also future-proofing them for entry into the industry later on. Essentially, that's a wrap on the competition as a highlight, but don't just take my word for it. We've also had some testimonial from some students and our academic staff. So please enjoy the following video.
I think students who have gone through this program definitely have learned a lot in terms of experience working together, being attentive to what other disciplines have to bring to the architecture problem, understanding that architecture sits in a context and can help solving problems only if you work together with others. I do believe that in the midterm, in the long term, this experience will stay with them as a point of reference.
It's a very rich project. So there's a lot for them to think about. There's innovation, sustainability, constructability, and then working in teams. So having an engineering team working with the architects, certainly from the architect's point of view, they were very excited about having a team. They have to learn to manage a team and how you bring it all together, and they learn how each other think.
The best thing that I learned for this assignment is actually learn about modular architecture. As for starters, I didn't actually know anything about modular architecture, so walking into this assignment or this competition was a very rewarding experience because it actually enabled me to learn about how design works, how flexibility and construction modular work in real case scenarios, and just understanding how the detail components join together and how they're very flexible on and off site.
I think having a real site is giving me a real world experience, because what we learn in the school is just theoretical stuff, but I think when you actually go to the site, you just feel like, wow, this project is going to work. It's going to inspire me a lot and help me to just keep pushing on.
Universities who are thinking about getting involved in FLEETWOOD Cup competition, Challenge Cup, go for it. The competition is structured really well to hit a number of things that the universities are looking for. It's got integration with industry, real projects, innovation, and then also starting to work with interdisciplines or working with consultants, which is very hard to do.
Un aplauso por favor para la presentación de don Brendan Pope. Muchas gracias, Brendan, ha sido muy interesante la comparación, ¿cierto?, entre los dos países y sobre todo la FLEETWOOD Challenge Cup, que ha sido de verdad la inspiración para nuestro desafío Net Zero 2030. No quiero dejar esta oportunidad sin hacer solamente un par de preguntas, y la primera, ¿cuál es la motivación? ¿Cuáles son los, como les dicen, los drivers para los estudiantes para participar en la FLEETWOOD Challenge Cup? ¿Cuál es su motivación? Si nos podrías contar, Brendan, por favor.
Thanks, Mark. Look, that's a great question. I think for our students, there are a number of things I like to think that they've actually got out of this. And, you know, when I set this competition up in Fleetwood, I was actually quite altruistic, having been a former student myself. Opportunities to work together with other disciplines within the university setting and learning from one another, I think, is a fantastic takeaway. Obviously, the opportunity to win a cash prize as part of the winning entries for the competition is fantastic as well. They have the opportunity to have their work showcased perpetually on a specific website that we have started with Prefabos, so that we actually capture each year's competition, so that they've got, I guess, a reference back to work that they have done for potentially seeking employment down the track. They get to work with projects which are actually more real and tangible than sometimes, I guess, the theoretical projects that you encounter when you do university study. So they're really fantastic, and you get the opportunity then also to make relationships with the industry professionals who are acting as our judges in terms of the finalists that actually make it into the end part of the competition. They actually get invited to our annual Prefab Oz conference, where they have an opportunity to present, find out who the place-getting winners are for the particular competition, and then also network with industry professionals who are actually coming from the offsite and prefabrication sectors. So that's a fantastic exposure for them in terms of their formative years in career.
En gran medida lo mismo que estamos nosotros también intentando lograr. Y finalmente, la otra pregunta que tenía que hacer, ¿están pensando en internacionalizar en algún momento esta competencia? ¿Podríamos pensar tal vez en equipos chilenos participando?
Look, it's again another great question. I think we're really trying to drive the uptake of the competition in Australia. One of the things I didn't mention in the presentation is, in the Australian context, the challenge of actually getting universities to embrace this as part of their curriculum, but also as part of a transdisciplinary subject delivery for credits to different streams within the academic space. So I think our focus at the moment is definitely in the Australian marketplace, but we would never say never.
Excelente, muchas gracias, Brendan, y les pido por favor un segundo aplauso para nuestro invitado internacional, el primero del día. Y bueno, muchas gracias, Brendan, por haber estado con nosotros.
Thank you. Great, and enjoy your conference. Thank you very much.
Excelente. Bueno, con esta presentación finalizamos el primer bloque de la mañana. Vamos a hacer una pequeña pausa para que puedan descansar, estirarse un poquito y recuperar energía. Nos queda bastante programa todavía. Hasta las 6 de la tarde vamos a tener distintos conversatorios y presentaciones. Así que los esperamos de vuelta aquí a las 10:50 para la continuación de este Congreso Construyendo Chile. Muchas gracias.